Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything movies, TV, comics, and entertainment. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast. What is going on, everyone? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. He's the statistician to the stars. His name is Padawan J.
Let me talk to you.
And boy, we finally have a lot to talk about in the land of movies, TV, comics, and more. You are tuned in to the entertainment edition of the ODPH, and we are super excited to talk with you about some new shows that are debuting this week. And after the shows come out, we definitely want to talk to everyone on social media about them. So, Pat, where's everybody go?
ODPHpodcast.com.
Right on. Swing on over to the website. All the social media accounts are all there, updated, and ready to rock and roll. So join in the conversation after the show. We'll definitely be talking with everybody. Also, check out the TeePublic store link. Always something happening there. So especially if you're going to a certain convention in the Empire State in October and you want to go get some ODPH wear, it's a perfect time to go pick some up. Also, while you're at the website, check out the blog section. New reviews are dropping left and right. The classified section, which has friends of the show, such as 3FM Podcast, Dragon Master Games, Nerd Initiative, and links for voter registration. Yesterday, as we were recording, was National Voter Registration here in the U.S., so make sure that you're all set up and ready to rock and roll for November. Links are there, so they'll tell you what you got to do, or if your timeline is already passed. But we've been preaching about it for quite some time, that is the only time you'll ever hear a political statement on the show. So, thus, there you go. Boom. Also, we have a directory, and I say we have a statistician that stars because he knows how many directories we're on. So, Pat, tell the people where we're at.
We are on 276,847.
I do not question, folks. He has great sources.
Trust me, bro.
Indeed. So definitely drop a review on your favorite podcatcher. It helps the algorithm of the show. It gets more people involved. So boom. It's nothing but win. Speaking of nothing but wins, we have a great music section of the show, which has such musicians as Brian Wolf and the Howlers, Second Suitor, Tom Jolu, Floodlands, Shout at the Robots, all amazing individuals giving you a lot of great music. You hear on ODPH, you hear on Nerd Initiative, you hear on 3FM Podcast. It's all great music that we definitely endorse, and go support the heck out of all those musicians. They're actually traveling around the U.S. right now, so It's always cool to see everybody out touring and doing some cool things. So you don't want to go support that wherever you can. And basically, if it's anything else that is the ODPH that I might have forgotten, because, hey, it happens. It's at odphpodcast.com. And remember on social media to use the hashtag ODPHpod. Kicking off this very, very special edition of the ODPH, Pad, the MCU is back.
Yes, it is.
Is it dead? Is it not? That is the question.
To be determined.
And we're going to have a little update about where things are ranking in the MCU because we have a brand new show debuting on Disney+.
Yes.
And one that I will admit, when I first heard about it, I was very surprised it was getting made.
I wasn't.
Really?
No. Well, and I'll get into that in a minute.
See, I was, just for the simple fact of the character that is getting their own show has never really been a big character in the MCU, the comics universe. And obviously stole the show in WandaVision because now this is a spinoff.
Yep.
And really is going to fill in a lot of gaps that fans have been waiting for since the transition into the new phase of the MCU.
Right.
Especially coming out of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And Pat, what show are we referring to?
Agatha All Along, starring the wonderful Catherine Hahn.
Yes, indeed. Resuming the role of Agatha Harkness. And this is going to fill in a lot of the questions fans have had since WandaVision and Doctor Strange 2, which, when you deal with the magic realm of the MCU, it's always a very, very tricky situation. And there's a lot of questions fans have had. Like, what is the status of Agatha?
Right.
What is going on with Wanda? Because, I mean, does anybody really die in the MCU other than Ben Parker?
Thus far.
Thus far, no. The answer really is no. And where are we going into the new phase? We do know there's been rumblings about a Vision series coming. We've heard, obviously, a lot of news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con concerning what will presumably be Secret Wars and Doomsday and all that fun stuff. So this is going to be kind of the gateway, if you will, into the next phase of the MCU because nothing else is slated until next year's Captain America Brave New World.
Yep.
So we are going to give the preview because as we are recording, the show has not aired yet. The 2-episode premiere is happening Wednesday, September 18th, 9 p.m. Eastern. So you have to figure it out wherever you are in the world on Disney Plus. And rest assured, we will be recapping it next week.
Oh, yeah.
So, Pad, let's give our talk. What's the speculation? What's your thoughts going into Agatha All Along?
So here's the reason I'm not surprised this happened. Let's roll back the clock. In case you forgot, the WandaVision series debuted January 15th, 2021, and finished up with the 9th episode titled The Series Finale on March 5th, 2021. During that time, we saw Catherine Hahn emerge as Agnes, who everyone loved, and it was a masterful performance. And then, of course, spoiler alert, but it was, 3 years ago now. But during the course of this show, we found out, oh my God, she's Agatha, which I know was the popular internet speculation. It was, kind of the easy one to figure out, but we figured it out during the process. And then I forget what episode it was, but at the end of one of the episodes, we had a certain song drop. The title, which of course the title of the song is the title of the new show, Agatha All Along, dropped in the show and then dropped on streaming, on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, like whatever streaming service you use for music. And the song was an absolute smash hit. I mean, looking at the Wikipedia page for the song and some of the accolades it received, it was nominated at the 2021 MTV Movie and TV Awards for Best Musical Moment. It also got Catherine Hahn nominated at the 2021 Dorian Awards for Best TV Musical Performance. Got a nomination at the 73rd Primetime Creative Arts Emmy Awards. And it got the writers Anderson Lopez and Lopez won an Outstanding Original Music and Lyrics for the song, and the song was nominated at the Grammy Awards for Grammy Award for Best Song Written for Visual Media. The song was everywhere, and at one point I know it rose to the top of the soundtrack charts on iTunes, which kind of a niche soundtrack chart to look at, but typically those charts kind of stay the same. It's the same songs, nothing really rises or falls quite like it did. So then you look at, when this series got announced, it was announced in October, so of that same year. So I don't think it was originally in the plans for them to do this, but they saw the reaction online with social media and just the popularity of the song. You and I both remember, you could not escape that song.
Oh yeah, it was all over the place
on social media for weeks. They saw the popularity of the song, they saw the popularity of the character, and they said, you know what? We might have something here. I think they left the character where it was just because, hey, we might be able to bring her back. We might be able to do something with her down the road when the time is right and when it makes sense. And then the reaction was the way it was, and it was, hey, whatever plans they might have thought they had or might have had penciled in, they went, let's erase those and do something else, because they had a smash hit on their hands, and I think they've got a smash hit on their hands with the show just because it's coming out at the perfect time of year. We're right in the heart or beginning part of spooky season, Halloween season here in the United States. Weather's not quite cooperating yet. It's in the mid 70s today, but you know what? Pumpkin spice lattes are available at Starbucks, and you can get cider donuts at your various donut shops. So and the decorations are out, the candy's out, so it's everyone's kind of in that fall feel. So to get a show focused on witches and Salem and covens, at a time where you might be thinking, I'm going to rewatch the Halloween franchise, or I might rewatch Friday the 13th. And if that's not necessarily your cup of tea, this might be more up your alley.
Well, the reason I kind of say I didn't fully buy into it is we have known that certain spin-off shows that Marvel has done still have not gotten greenlit for sequels.
True.
You can take a look at She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, Moon Knight. That phase came out, and it was not exactly in a lot of certain people's eyes, I guess I should say, a monster hit, and we've heard of restructuring the deck, so to speak, with the MCU. Sure, they announced it, but to actually see it happen, I was actually very surprised.
Sure.
Because, you were right. This show, when it was out, was at a time period that when you had new content, it was all over the place and well needed at the time, too.
Oh, yeah.
So seeing how it blew up, I figured it might have a chance. But this is a case I'll kind of file under the Daryl Dixon scenario. When you have a breakout character that you can't turn away from.
Daryl Dixon, Norman Reedus' character in The Walking Dead, not supposed to survive the first season.
Right.
He's now over 15 years later on a spinoff series.
Yeah, it's just absolutely wild to see, but it shows if a character can win over the audience. there's a chance.
Yep.
And in this situation, I thought it was kind of a little risky, to be honest with you. Nothing against Catherine Hahn's performance. She's fantastic in this. She is absolutely fantastic because the source material, which I will always go to, there's really not a ton that screams like an Agatha series.
It's like if in Star Wars, there's the dude who gets his arm sliced off in the cantina by Obi-Wan, Ponda Baba. Like if Lucasfilm were to turn around and go, hey, we're going to do a Ponda Baba spin-off series, like a Disney Plus series, I'd be like, okay, like you might be able to do something with that. We don't know a whole lot about him, but it's not like there's a ton of source material.
Right, but in this situation, I mean, Agatha is a very tricky character.
Sure.
Because she's been connected to everybody from the Avengers to the Fantastic Four. But she is a perfect supporting character. To put a show around her could be a challenge, but is also a testament to where Catherine Hahn has taken the character.
Yeah.
To really try doing a lead role. But I also feel that this is a setup for something, too. Because as we've seen the trailer, and just a very quick breakdown, Agatha is no longer the magical sorceress that she has been.
Right, lost her powers at the end of WandaVision.
So she is discovered by a certain young gentleman that we don't know a lot about.
Nope.
But we do know there's something special about him. He's played by Joe Locke. Now, I do have some theories of who he is.
Okay.
So
Mephisto.
No, actually not Mephisto.
Sorry, I had to get it out of the way.
But I will do just the very quick spoiler warning for everybody in case they want to duck out of this second, just for a bit. 3, 2, 1. I think this is Scarlet Witch's son, Wiccan.
Ooh, okay.
And I fully believe that in this situation, this show is setting up for Young Avengers.
Well, it could. I think it also might be the thing that just crossed my mind when you brought up that speculation is it could be a way for them to try and possibly bring back Wanda, because we know Wanda's dead. Like there was the official encyclopedia, whatever that book was called, that came out after Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, where it like people were speculating, oh, did she not, did she get out, did she do this, did magic, whatever. And the book, which was an officially licensed Marvel book, said she was dead. Like there ain't no coming back. Like she's dead. So you brought that up. I wonder if this ain't a way, not necessarily. I'm not saying it's going to happen in this series, but it's to get the pieces in place to start, the chess game or whatever you want, analogy you want to use to get her to come back. Because Elizabeth Olsen has said she's willing to play the part again.
Well, I think the deal there is the right story has to be done to bring her back.
Right.
Now, have they done this in the comics? Multiple times.
Case in point, Wolverine.
I mean, even with Scarlet Witch herself.
Yeah.
But Wolverine, I mean...
They cased his entire body in liquid adamantium. He's still around.
Yeah, he's back. I mean, it is...
Somehow Wolverine returned.
We just call it, Pad, what?
Reasons.
But it still works because it's comics.
Yep.
And like I say, unless you're Ben Parker...
Yeah.
Nobody ever stays dead. Jean Grey, Bucky Barnes.
Jean Grey multiple times.
Yeah, so in this situation, bringing Wanda Maximoff back.
I think Jean's about due to die again in the comics, honestly.
No. Actually, she's in a great story right now in space. Great, fantastic series if anybody hasn't checked that out yet. But getting back to Wanda, though, I think that's the sole purpose of the show because that would play into a lot of Agatha's strengths because now she's trying to find herself and it seems that she's trying to get her powers back. And she is acquiring a little coven, as she said, to go along with this.
Which makes sense. She's originally from Salem in the 1600s. A lot of podcasts, a lot of documentaries you can watch on that whole process, which is wild every time you see something about it. But getting a coven, makes sense.
Yeah, because she wants to get her powers back and get back to where she is now that she knows who she is. So Wanda, who obviously took care of her in WandaVision, that there's something off. So
it's going to be interesting just to see how things got to this point, just because the vibe I got off the end of WandaVision was, yes, she didn't have her powers, but it seemed like she still knew who she was. And going based off of the one trailer that came out, she doesn't know anything other than she's like an investigator for the police or something. Like, because like the one trailer is like, oh, an accident happened or a murder scene happened or whatever, was like something out of Law and Order. She gets called and she goes to investigate, but she can tell something's not right.
Yeah. But as it shows, the only thing that we know that she's putting together a team. Because now that she's been awakened, she senses there's other witches that will be involved.
Yep.
Or people that deal with magic, I should say, rather. because we are seeing her group get pulled together. There's one character that jumped out to me, and that's played by Shasir Zamata, and she's playing Jennifer Kale.
Ooh.
Now, that is a very well-known character in the comics universe involving magic.
Okay.
And has dealt with the Midnight Suns, amongst other groups there. So that's why I say I love the deep dive here for the character. Very excited to see what she does here, and especially with the young gentleman that's playing. They have not said on IMDb or anywhere what his title is. I fully am banking that is Wiccan.
Could be.
So if you're not familiar with who that is in the comics, that is one of Scarlet Witch's children.
Also, it's fairly obvious at this point they're going to do Young Avengers, and I feel like at this point you're just beating everybody over the head with like, we're going to do it. We're going to do it.
Well, they have to assemble the team, and especially...
I know.
But the one thing that they're doing with the show, too, and with all the shows introducing these characters, they're doing it like they did the Avengers.
True.
Everybody has their own series, so to speak, to build in.
True.
So when they finally do that team, and whether it's going to be a movie or a Disney Plus series, which I think it's going to be the latter instead of the former, I think it's going to be a big hit. And I know that they've dabbled in Young Avengers a lot. I know it's kind of transferred lately into Champions in the comics.
Yeah.
But still, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
But going in with this series, though, it's going to be very interesting to see who the main antagonist is.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's been speculation about Aubrey Plaza's character.
Oh, okay.
And she is slated to play Rio Vidal, who we know is a green witch.
Yes.
And not too much after that.
So, from what we can tell from the research we've been doing online, it sounds like that it's an original character that might be based on a couple of different characters or a couple possibilities from the comics, but it's not a direct pull from any comic series that at least we can find the information from.
Mm-hmm. So it will be interesting to see what she is. I will actually give some credit to Damon from Agents of Fandom.
Okay.
He mentioned, and I love this idea, that she could actually be the MCU version of Master Pandemonium.
Oh.
Who, if you know the comics and know the connection with Wanda's children, that makes perfect sense. So if they want to do that, I think that'd be a great bait and switch. And now that he threw that out there, it's stuck in my head like it needs to happen. But I really am interested to see where this goes, because I do agree with you. I think by the time this is done, we're going to have an idea what Wanda is, or at least an idea about how to bring her back.
Right.
I would imagine the Darkhold would be involved somehow.
Oh, yeah.
Because they are using that quite often now in the MCU.
Yep.
And especially with Vision coming back in a series, because we have heard that there is a series in development.
They've announced it, that they're working on it.
Yeah, with Paul Bettany reprising the role.
Yep.
I would not doubt it, that this is going to kind of be a gateway for that to draw him back.
Yeah.
Because there will be something involving Wanda with this.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I mean, the trailers have not really given off too much.
No, just kind of the Halloween spooky vibes, dark roads, creepy forests, Salem.
Yeah, which I think it's fun to dabble in.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how it's going to come across.
Okay.
Because the one thing, but granted, my viewpoint is I go from the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Magic comics in the MCU really are very hit and miss.
Thing is, though, we got to remember is a couple of years ago, about a year or two ago, whatever it was, there was like the Marvel Spotlight.
Yeah.
That whole thing with like, hey, this is like important stuff that you need to watch. At no point have we seen that for this series. So this, to me, at least seems like, is it required viewing for everybody right now? No. Is it one of those little side stories that, hey, it's there if you want it, but it's not but it's not required. It's one that later you might need to go back to it, but for right now, it's not integral to what's going on because it doesn't have the Marvel Spotlight banner, I guess you could say, on it.
Mm-hmm. But it's going to really develop into something I think have larger ramifications.
Okay.
On the grand scheme of where we're going for the next phase.
Probably.
And I think that they need to, especially if you want to see these shows be successful, because we have to remember the business aspect of things.
Yeah.
If this show tanks for whatever reason, and I don't think it will. I think it's going to be a fun.
I think it's going to do fun.
If this does bad, we've seen in comparison with the Star Wars universe, and the live action.
Yeah.
If it doesn't do well, we're not going to see a lot more per se.
Right.
So this show has a lot of pressure on it to deliver, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But I think for where it's set up, it should be very, very workable.
I think it's going to do fine. I mean, we remember a couple of years ago when they did the Werewolf by Night special, and that came out around this time of year. I can look it up. But I never heard anything firm about how it did, numbers wise, but that goes for positive and negative, so I imagine it'll do fine. It's not going to tank. I don't think it's going to set any sort of streaming records. Werewolf by Night released on October 7th, 2022. So yeah, around the same time, spooky season, Halloween season. But I think it'll do fine. Looking at the Wikipedia, for Werewolf by Night, it says Whip Media, which tracks viewership data for the more than 21 million worldwide users of its TV Time app, calculated that Werewolf by Night was the top streamed in the U.S. for the week ending October 9th, 2022. It was the top streamed film in the United States for the week ending October 9th, 2022. It ranked second for the week ending October 16th, third for the week ending October 26th, and 6th for the week ending October 30th. So this app, site, whatever, that has 21 million viewers, it was in the top 10 for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it did fine.
It did fine, but that was also a very interesting project too for the sense that it was a test.
Yeah.
So the bar was set very low and it exceeded it completely.
Yeah, no, it did.
And I think that gave the indication that Marvel has hinted they want to do a Midnight Suns.
Oh, I could say it. Yeah, I think with Agatha All Along, though, it's coming out at the right time. Everyone's kind of in Halloween mode. The decorations are out on people's front porches. I've been the Spirit Halloween stores are popping up in vacant buildings in towns across America. Mm-hmm. So I think everyone's mind is kind of there. And the fact that I'm looking on the IMDb page, we got the 2 episodes on September 18th, and then it runs every Wednesday through there's a 2-episode, it's releasing the final 2 episodes the same week on Wednesday, October 30th. So it's ending
for Halloween.
The day right before Halloween. So it's the perfect time of year. It's at that time. It's coming out when, 9 o'clock. That's the thing I love, by the way, that Disney Plus has done is they've done away with hey, we're going to release this at midnight West Coast time. So that means it's 3 a.m. Eastern time. And that means I got to get up at the crack of dawn to make sure I can watch it before I get my day started.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll get spoiled on social media because some of y'all can't control yourselves. Case in point, Luke Skywalker, season 2 Mandalorian.
Yeah, I know. I have not forgotten about that.
No, I know. But I that's the nice thing I think with this is it's at the right time of year. It's at the right time of day where it's 9 o'clock so the kids can get home. They can get their homework done. Yeah, that's right, kids. You're listening to this. Do your homework. Speaking from experience, the kids can get done with their homework. They can have dinner with their family. And then they can all sit down and pop on the latest Marvel show because I think this will be fine for kids. I think if we're going to compare it in terms of like, scariness or kind of the horror level of it, I don't think it's necessarily going to be like a slasher horror film level of scary. I think if we had to use a comparison, it's going to be closer to like Hocus Pocus or Halloween Town for you 90s kids. Mm-hmm. There'll be moments of like, oh my gosh, like that was scary, but it's not going to be anything that'll like give kids nightmares because it's Marvel after all.
Oh yeah, it's going to be very, I want to say family friendly, but I think the scare elements are going to be few and far between.
Oh, yeah.
I think you'll have some moments.
There'll be some jump scares. There'll be a little bit of creepy, but it'll be like at a haunted house. You walk through a haunted house the first time with the lights out. Sure, that thing you reach your hand into feels like eyeballs. But then if you go back in with the lights on, you realize, oh, that wasn't eyeballs. That was grapes.
Yeah. So the quest for her power will be one to watch. And I think you'll have some kind of magic violence in there, so to speak, if you will. But it all depends on how she wants to lead into this because that's the only thing we know. This is a quest to get her powers back. And I'm presuming to get some more magic back for a lot of other people. That's the only thing I can presume that's why she's trying to get her coven together to go do this.
And it could be kind of like what the Thor movies did or the Guardians of the Galaxy movies did and kind of bring in this newer side of the Marvel universe that we've not seen all that much yet. Because yes, we've seen magic, but it's been kind of self-contained to one individual. So this could be just them opening another avenue for stories down the road.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a little test point with this. When you try dabbling into new territory, it depends on how the pop culture audience gets it.
I'm excited because like has been said on the show, I'm not the biggest horror fan. I can stomach the Universal classic monster movies.
Yeah.
But past that, not much. I can't do slashers. I can't do kind of like the gore and violence and blood and all that. But something like this, I'm down for it.
Yeah, this will be right up your alley, Pat. And I think it's going to do a lot of things, I should say, to really establish where we're going, especially with WandaVision, for both characters, I should say. I group them together, so that's why I say that. But for Wanda, I think it'll be the gateway about bringing her back. I think it'll tap into the Vision quest that's going to eventually happen.
At some point.
But I think the biggest takeaway is going to be we're going to have Wiccan be established in the MCU from this.
Could be.
That's going to be the lock, I will say, for this.
Could be.
The leap would be Elizabeth Olsen cameo.
Ooh, that'd be well. Like I said, she has said she wants to play and is willing to play the character again.
Yeah, so we'll just have to wait and see when it drops on Disney Plus, and definitely we'll be recapping next week. In the meantime, though, hit us up on the hashtag ODPH Pod. What is your thoughts going into Agatha All Along debuting on Disney Plus September 18th? Let's have that discussion, shall we? But first, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You ever wondered what comics Mark from Vale is into? What Zach from Left Behind's favorite MCU movies are? Well, Metalcore Nerds is the show for you. My name is Sean Mott, and here at Metalcore Nerds, we cover the latest things in pop culture, whether it be Star Wars, Marvel, DC, AEW, and everything else in between. You can listen to the show every Monday on Adobe Howl at 7 p.m. Eastern, or find it anywhere you find podcasts after it debuts on the radio station.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and another debut is happening this week.
Yeah.
It's Marvel vs. DC all over again.
Oh, boy.
But you know, that's a big win for the fans.
Absolutely.
Because we are returning to the Matt Reeves Batverse. Perfect timing with what is going on this weekend, but we'll discuss that in one-shots.
Yeah.
But we are heading back to Gotham City because, Pad, what is debuting finally this week?
Finally on Thursday, September 19th at probably 9 o'clock.
It is 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, okay. Is the first episode of the next chapter in the Matt Reeves Batman universe titled The Penguin.
Yes, indeed. Colin Farrell is reprising his role as Oswald Cobblepot. However, though, on the show, I guess the running name is Oz Cobb.
There's probably a joke or a reason. We'll see.
Exactly. The crime lord of Gotham City that in the comics has just capped off a fantastic series, too. Really spotlighting the character and kind of what makes him tick. And he's always been a Batman rogue that has stood out from the pack. And over the recent years, they've transitioned him from being just another super villain, so to speak, into a grounded crime boss that has really teetered the line of frenemy with Batman at times, too. Their relationship has gotten very interesting, but he's still been a ruthless gangster at heart.
Yeah.
And this series is going to spotlight his character from the Reevesverse. So there's been a lot of expectations going on with this. We have watched the trailer, so much like the first segment, we're going to give you our initial thoughts, maybe talk some speculation, so I wouldn't say spoilers, and really give you our opinions heading into the premiere, which Pat alluded to is going to be on September 19th. And then it's transitioning to Sunday nights on Max. And I believe it starts on September 29th.
Correct. It's the second episode.
Yeah, so there's going to be a 10-day gap between episodes.
Which is odd, but okay.
Well, tying into Batman Day, I think they wanted to really capitalize on that. And just it's how everything fell in line. But nevertheless, there's a lot to discuss with this. So, Pad, let's talk about the series. We just saw the trailer. What's your thoughts?
So I'm super excited for this series because when they first announced the Batman movie and Matt Reeves was doing it, I was kind of like, okay, because if memory serves, this was still when, the whole Snyderverse was still under speculation. What the hell would happen to that? Because the film came out in 2022, I believe it was. I'll look that up here in a second. But, things were kind of still up in the air with, 2022. Things were kind of still up in the air with like what was going on with the Snyderverse. What were they going to do with Affleck? There was the rumors of the Affleck movie. And then they announced this kind of side thing with Pattinson. And Pattinson and I have got a love-hate relationship.
Yep.
Loved him in Harry Potter, Twilight. Really not my cup of tea, but hey, to each their own. And then I was kind of on the fence and not really sure. And I was like, I'm going to reserve judgment until I see something. And then, of course, there was that infamous trailer they dropped at the end of, Fandom. In 2020 or 2021, whatever year it was, that I just went, oh my God.
21.
I was like, oh my God, I need this now. And then I went and saw the film in theaters, and it is arguably and still one of my top 5 favorite comic book movies of all time. It's in that same conversation with Logan for me of like one of the greatest comic book movies I've ever seen. I know there's certain people we know that do not agree and do not see the same side of the coin as we do, but hey, as we say on the show, to each their own.
Exactly.
To each their own.
Exactly.
But, I was like, man, I need something else from this universe. This universe was great. It put the detective back in Batman, which I don't think we've seen since the animated series back in the 90s. That's the one thing is Batman's always been the great crime fighter in the films, but yeah, not a whole lot of detective work.
Yeah.
But they reintroduced that. It was a great grounded kind of year one story, and it was just something that I really wanted to sink my teeth into and see more of. And one of the great performances in that film, obviously, was Colin Farrell. And Colin Farrell's already an amazing actor, and seen him in a whole bunch of movies. And every time he's in a movie, he always steals scenes. But there was just something about his character in that movie that just took it to another level, and was just so stellar. Because you think of the people who have played the Penguin on screen, television screen, movie screens, video game screens over the years. There's been a lot of storied actors and portrayals of Penguin over the years. Danny DeVito. Probably the one most people think of. But he really took it and he made it something his own. Mm-hmm. That he didn't kind of fall in the tropes and fall in let me borrow from this portrayal, let me borrow that from that portrayal and kind of mesh them together and do something. No, he took it, he made it his own. And it was a fantastic performance. So when they announced this series, I'm like, yes, this makes total sense. If it ends up being a bridge, because they not long after the first movie came out, they said they're going to do another one. If this ends up being a bridge between that first movie and the second movie, all the better. If it's just a little side story to tell in between two movies, to kind of keep us, our appetite sated, in the wait time, I'm all right with that. But I'm excited for this.
This series has kind of been one that has gone through some changes.
Yeah.
Because remember, we've originally heard there was going to be an Arkham Asylum series.
Yes.
Then there was going to be one focusing on the Gotham PD.
Gotham PD, yeah.
And then it's now morphed into
just this.
The Penguin, which is fine.
Yeah.
Because Colin Farrell really stole scenes when he was in Matt Reeves' Batman. And especially for that movie being a very different take than we have seen in recent years. Mm-hmm. Very grounded, focusing more on the detective aspect, as you touched upon. We really got to see a side of Colin Farrell that we haven't seen in a lot of his portrayals, in my opinion.
No.
And I thought what he did is, much like in the same vein of Agatha, he really made a case that this character could showcase something.
Yeah.
And the fact that it got greenlit and ran with, fans have been very speculating on, because obviously the Batman movie we know is in pre-production.
Yep.
Or they're
in the writing stages, if not done writing it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's around there somewhere.
And there's a lot of rumors going on with that, but to tide the fans over to release this show, I think is going to appease a lot of fans, and especially really ignite the fan base to start talking again about this, because it seems like it's cooled off. We know we're in a transition phase at DC Films.
Yep.
With Peter Safran and James Gunn leading the charge.
Yep.
We know next year is all Superman.
Oh, boy, yeah, it is.
No question about that.
Yeah, it is.
So to get one last shot of Batman and Gotham City in before the Superman takeover is smart. Mm-hmm. And I think what they did is they've really taken their time to set this up and give fans something different to think about with the Penguin.
Yeah.
Because we've seen the portrayals of Danny DeVito, like you touched on, Burgess Meredith, if you want to go back to Batman 66.
Yeah.
We haven't seen this ruthless gangster side, so to speak, unless you read the comics.
There were glimpses of it.
Glimpses, yes.
Well, I'm going to say there were glimpses of it in the Arkham video games.
Yes.
But he was never like the focal villain for any of those games. Mm-hmm. So you caught glimpses of it, and there were definitely some hints. And sure, there was a little bit of it in the animated series, but not necessarily to the level we saw in the Batman movie.
No. And the trailers, I should say, rather.
Yeah.
Have been very vague.
Yeah.
For a reason.
Yeah. I mean, all we know is that it's crime oriented. There's, that's been mentioned in a couple trailers that there's a gang war going on, which, hey, given the events of what happened at the end of the Batman, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah. That's on track.
It makes sense completely. And you are seeing almost the rise to power of him being the overlord of Gotham. Mm-hmm. Because they do touch upon Carmine Falcone is gone.
Yep.
Has been killed off.
Yep.
We do know that there is a Johnny Vitti that is running things as the underboss, so to speak, who's played by Michael Kelly, who's a fantastic actor. We do know that Falcone's daughter has now come back from Arkham. Sophia, played by Kristen Milioti.
Milioti, yeah.
Milioti, thank you. And there's a lot going on with her character. Allegedly, she might be a serial killer known as the Hangman. We don't know about that. And then there's a young gentleman, Victor Allegar, who's played by Renzi Feliz, who is a teenager that is now becoming like the heir apparent to the Penguin. There's a very unique Batman and Robin relationship, so to speak, forming.
That's what it feels like, yeah.
It reminded me a little more of a Bronx Tale, if you've ever seen that movie.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like that vibe going with the young boy fascinated with a gangster's life.
Uh-huh.
And this is where you're kind of seeing, the Penguin steering that way, but for his own manipulations.
Right.
Because you're seeing just a lot of crime-esque scenes portrayed throughout. Like I say, there's not really too much to deep dive in per se. I mean, there is a shot, though, of Clancy Brown, who's playing Salvatore Maroni, which that's going to come into a lot of conflict going on. We know that, obviously, the Falcones and Maronis are very well-known gangster families in Gotham.
Yep.
And there was a little shot as a kickoff one with Frances Cobb, who's played by Deidre O'Connell. That is the Penguin's mother.
Oh, I just thought of something.
What's up?
I just thought of something. So, tying things in, because for some reason I thought the name Sal Maroni sounded familiar. I'm doing Google searches and trying to figure out where I know him from and this and that. But what if, and I know I'm doing early predictions, we know that Reeves has said he's going to kind of keep things grounded when it comes to the sequel, that he's not going to get kind of psychological. What if this sets up for the sequel Phantasm? Because if you think back to the Phantasm movie, very crime boss oriented, a lot of the crime families heavily involved with that movie. Joker does come out of that movie. Obviously, he's already established in this, but what if we get kind of like a side story for Joker 2 with Phantasm with this?
I mean, anything is really possible because there's so much speculation going on right now.
True.
I mean, I've heard everything from Hush to Court of Owls to...
Court of Owls would be nuts.
Yeah, like I say, there's been a lot of names rumored.
I don't
want to stress that.
I don't know if the public's ready for Court of Owls.
I don't know if I'm ready for it, and I'm one of the biggest fans of that.
That is true.
So I'm just saying there's so much speculation, like anything is more or less in play, maybe with the exception of anyone that's a supernatural. Like I say, I think the biggest stretch they might go is Clayface.
Yeah.
I could see him showing up.
I could see Clayface. I could see Man-Bat. Not necessarily the focal villain, but like cameo, make an appearance.
Yeah, you might see something.
Side story.
Because I think they really want to keep this very grounded, so you're not going to dabble too much in that.
Yeah.
And that's why the Penguin works for this.
Yeah.
Because this is probably the prototype example of what Reeves is trying to do here. So if he wants to teach or tell, I should say rather, a story, and him who is teaching Victor the ways of the Gotham Mafia, so to speak, I think that's a very interesting take to do.
Well, and just how much of an advantage it is for the crime families, where you think back to how the Batman ended with what was it, half or 3/4 of the city was flooded, and just how much of a destruction that is, and how messy and just how out of control things are going to be. And it's like, hey, if we want to take over, we want to start running things, here's how we do it. This is the perfect time.
Yeah. So there's so many different ways they can run with this, and that's the beauty of it. And I think there's going to be a lot more than what we've seen in the trailers, too.
Yeah, I think so.
I think what they're going to try doing, and I think what the smart players do, is you want to almost make the Penguin sympathetic to a degree.
Sure.
That there's a connection there for him, because
Sure.
if he's just ruthless as is, it's tough to get behind him and see him get his rise to power. But like I say, I'm going to compare it to the Tom King series that just came out.
Right.
I think that there's so much of the similarities in where his character is and how it was written for the show, or written in the book and the show. I think there's a lot of similarities per se, albeit though, if you read the comic, there's a lot of, we're not dealing with certain family members yet.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think for where they're going to go is they just want to establish him as a force in Gotham, so that when we see him in Penguin 2, or Batman 2, I should say rather, because I fully think we are.
Probably.
It'll be more of a connection to the audience of what this version is of Penguin. And I think there's a lot to be had here. The cast is very star-studded.
The cast is great. I mean, Clancy Brown's in it. Holy hell.
Yeah. Like I said, him as Sal Maroni, I mean, enough said.
Fucking Mr. Krabs went evil.
Yeah. So there is a lot that they can really go with and really push.
Yeah, it's only going to be, 9 episodes?
8 episodes.
8 episodes.
So it's 8 episodes, so it will be a short series, but I think that's great for what they need
that's
to
all,
do.
That's all you need. There's no fluff. There's no filler. There's no, we're going to pad this out with 20 minutes of exposition between two characters we're never going to see again.
Yeah. So I think they're being smart about this.
Yeah.
And I think the overall outcome is if they can create enough hype, we could go back to this universe with Penguin
Yeah.
and do another spin-off show. or lean into some of the other rogues in Gotham.
And lean into some of the rogues we haven't seen before. Listen, I got nothing against Harvey Dent, Joker, any, Riddler, or any of the ones, Scarecrow we've seen on screen before. Batman's got such a deep rogues gallery that you don't need to go to the same ones every single time. There's nothing wrong with it if you do, but just, hey, a little variety.
Well, I think that doing a show like this might be that gateway.
Sure.
Because the Penguin obviously is a very popular rogue.
Oh, sure.
But in this interpretation, I think this is going to be a very big test for the audience.
Oh, yeah.
That if they can really get behind this. But I think the story is right there because it's a crime war in Gotham.
Yeah.
So it sells itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the wild card is going to be Sophia Falcone.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that's going to be. Because I
Mm-hmm.
know that might seem a little over the top for what they want to go in the story, but I think it works.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to wait to see how it plays out. But with 8 episodes, we do know they're going to hit the ground running.
Yep.
And I don't think we're going to have too much filler per se. Just you're going to get a great insight into Farrell's performance.
I'm also going to go out on a limb. We will not see Pattinson's Batman in this movie. I think there might be hints, and there might be, you'll hear the name mentioned, but seeing him on screen, no. I don't think it'll show up.
No, I don't think he should either. I think it should be alluded to, like maybe throw the bat signal in the sky per se, or something.
Maybe you see the car in the background.
Yeah, something like that. Just a quick cameo of sorts.
But in terms of actually seeing him there physically, no,
I doubt it.
I don't think so.
No, I mean I'll say it's probably a 90% chance. No, I'll say there's a fluke.
Oh, sure.
There's a fluke thing.
There's always a chance.
Yes, I mean they could definitely go that route, but I think they want to give the shine to Farrell, and I think he's earned it.
Absolutely.
I really think he has.
Absolutely.
So I mean, there's going to be a lot to juggle around with this. Like we say, this is going to be straightforward crime in Gotham, but we're here for it.
Absolutely.
So that being said, hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod. The Penguin debuts on Max Thursday, September 19th. I believe it's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You definitely want to watch that. And then recap will be happening on next week's show, so you don't want to miss it. But in the meantime, hit us up. Let us know your thoughts going into the series. We'll discuss, and then obviously we'll have a lot more to discuss next week. So that said, we're going to take our final break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder, and you better listen to the ODPH podcast, or I'm coming for you, and Batman is coming for you.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pad, what you got?
Got a couple things to talk about. The first of which is some exciting news for me, and it's some exciting news if you are a viewer of this anime, because if you're not a fan of this anime, you got time to check it out, because it is a fantastic anime that I watched this past year, and that is Solo Leveling. And season 2 has been confirmed for a release window of January in 2025. Gave a little bit of a preview trailer. It looks amazing. The first season is out on Crunchyroll. It is only 12 episodes. They go by very quickly. The anime, the first episode had me hooked by the end, and I was like, because it's a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of video games, and a little bit of horror, a little bit of monsters and stuff. It's a great blend. It's a great show. The voice acting is incredible. So yeah, like I said, season 2 coming on in January 2025. Cannot come soon enough, because good God, after the way the first season ended, I need to know what happens next, and I don't want to spoil it by going and reading the manga. But then also related to Solo Leveling, it was revealed that it's going to be getting a theatrical movie here coming soon. Yeah, so according to an article from comicbook.com, it says, quote, Solo Leveling is now in the works on coming back for season 2 of the anime, but it's going to be hitting theaters with a new movie before the anime returns in full. Solo Leveling made its highly anticipated debut earlier this year and quickly became one of the most popular new releases of the year thus far. Fans have been asking to see the webtoon get an official anime adaptation ever since the webcomics started to make their way to screens, and the series really followed through on this promise with the successful debut of the anime's first season earlier this year. Solo Leveling will be returning for season 2 of the anime next winter, but some lucky fans will get the chance to see the start of the season early before it comes to TV. Solo Leveling Reawakening is a special movie event coming to theaters in Korea and Japan later this fall that will not only feature a compilation of the first season, but also an early premiere for season 2. So that is coming out in Korea and Japan. Hopefully it comes out over here in the stateside. If not, well, yo-ho, a pirate's life for me, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
But no, seriously, if you have not seen Solo Leveling on Crunchyroll. It's an amazing series. It's probably the fastest I've latched onto a series since maybe Dragon Ball. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you keep raving about it. I got to get into it. I just, I'm a busy man, so what can
I understand. Then I got to give a little bit of a review because a couple of weeks ago, the video game Harry Potter Quidditch Champions came out, and I was able to get it for free as part of my PlayStation Plus subscription. And I got to say, it's not bad. It's fun. It's got its humor and charm to it. I think if you were even a casual Harry Potter fan, you don't have to be a diehard that's read every book and seen every movie and watched the prequel movies and gone to trivia nights and read all the fan forums and read the speculation back when the books are coming out. Like, you don't need to be that deep of a fan. If you've seen the movies, once or twice, you know what the sport is, you remember it from the movies, that's enough to go on. The tutorials give you it starts off with tutorials on how to play each of the positions in the game. A little bit different from the books and the movies if you've seen those, but I think that's done for a competitive reason, because there is certainly an aspect, there's online play with this game, and you don't have to play online, but it is there. But I think the changes they made to the game were done in an effort to kind of like, if this game ends up developing a kind of online competitive flow to it or side to it, or at conventions or tournaments or whatever, then this is why it was done. But the game's fun. It's a lot of, there's no microtransactions with it. I know people see the little thing going up and they think there's a battle pass. There's no battle pass. Everything can be earned in game, playing matches. You get items when you complete the matches and through doing certain criteria and meeting certain goals in those games. The only things you can the only thing you can purchase is there is a DLC. Although if you really want to call it DLC, but it's like a house specific. So it's Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff. It's the 4 houses. You can get some gear. You can purchase that. I think it's maybe $10-15, whatever it is. But if you've played Hogwarts Legacy, you get a broom from that game for free. Through PlayStation Plus, by the way, if you have PlayStation Plus, I don't know when it runs through, so check the store. But if you go into the add-on section, there is a Firebolt, which is one of the brooms in Harry Potter. You can unlock that for free, but there's no battle pass, there's no microtransactions, there's no pay to win with this whole thing, and it's definitely got like a rocket rocket the hell's that game?
Rocket League.
Thank you, Rocket. It's got a Rocket League vibe to it, and it's a lot of fun.
There's too many people I know with Rocket League. There's an inside story with that I always just kind of do not think Rocket League. So.
But yeah, I mean, if you got PlayStation Plus, it's free. Check it out. You can't go wrong with free. At worst, you might not you can just delete it and not play it again.
Could be interesting. Yeah,
it's fun though.
Yeah. So for us, before we get into the comic picks, obviously it is Batman Day this coming Saturday, September 21st. And it is a time to celebrate all things Caped Crusader. Since its initial debut, it's crazy to think in 2014.
I know.
Because that is when the 75th anniversary of Batman was. And now here we are, 85 years later.
I'm not crazy.
Like, time is just going by way, way, way too fast.
You're telling me.
But yeah. But there's going to be stuff going on all over the world. DC.com/Batman is the official hub for what's going on. But this is a time to celebrate. So, Pat, I always ask you every year, and I still do it.
Yeah.
What is your best Batman memory?
My best Batman memory is, I got a couple, is discovering the series and kind of branching out from it. I discovered Batman through Batman the Animated Series when that was on television. Got really into that. I had the Batmobile toy. It was a pretty decent sized scale toy. And having I had the Bat plane, so I had a bunch of those toys. Going from there, discovering the Adam West TV series, because I'd be watching Guts on Nickelodeon back in the day, and Guts would get over and I'd flip the channels looking for something. And I discovered reruns of the Adam West TV series on TV Land. And I remember getting really confused because, as you remember in Batman the Animated Series, he's got the grappling gun and he's swinging through the skies at Gotham.
Yeah.
And then you get to the Adam West series and he's walking up the side of a building. And I looked at my dad and I go, Dad, why is he walking up the side of the building? He's got a grapple gun. And my dad had to come up with some convoluted, answers to why and try to explain to me at like 10 years old. TV back in the 60s wasn't like how it was back in the 90s. But, going from there. And then the one that sticks out to me the most is when Batman Mask of the Phantasm got announced. and that it was going to get a theatrical release. And I went, I need to see this. And I had bugged my mother to the point she actually took me in theaters to go see it. So that was my first experience with Batman in the theaters. And I got to say, having my first experience with Batman in the theaters being Mask of the Phantasm, not a bad first experience.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely not one. For me, it's always ranged. I remember going to my first movie solo to go see Batman 89.
Right.
Somehow I got in and they did not check my age. I'm not questioning things, but
it was the 80s.
Yeah, I was gonna say shout out
time.
Shout out to whoever's let me slide in there at a very young age. But it was still, like I say, going to see that on the big screen. And like, I always remember it was one of the characters I always saw walking in the comic shop way back when I was super young. And to see Batman 66 was always on reruns on the New York stations up here.
Yep.
So always having that connection and seeing the evolution of the character. And I've always said this on record, too. I was never that big of a comic fan, per se. I always liked them, but I was not like a huge fan until Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo's run.
Right.
And now I'm all in. I read Batman way more than I ever thought I was going to. And there's always something about seeing him as portrayed and seeing how it's transitioned to the big screen and small screens and the different interpretations, but just how it connects with fans on so many different levels.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly the Boy Scout superhero that Superman is, or even Spider-Man, who's conflicted against all odds. This is just somebody that is just really taken his idea to avenge and to stop it from ever happening again to somebody else to a whole different level, and just how it connects with people. Because at the end of the day, he's still just a man.
Yeah,
he's a human, no superpowers. And just the sheer will, whether you love it or agree it, because obviously in times it's caused a little friction with the rest of the heroes he comes into contact with. It's still at the end of the day about finding a way to do good, even when there's insurmountable odds of evil. So it's always something to connect there. And like we said, there is so much stuff going on at your comic shops. I'm sure there's going to be some deals this weekend. Check there first.
There are.
I know I'm reading from DC's official blog for this. DC Infinite, Universe Infinite is celebrating Batman Day by offering a curated collection of Batman-centric content free to read in front of the paywall. Additionally, subscribers can read the Batman Long Halloween, Last Halloween, #1 the same day as print, starting September 25th.
Long Halloween, also 2 great animated movies.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And they're even saying not as subscribers, sign up today using the promo code Batman89 30-day for a free trial for 30 days.
Nice.
So, so there's links to that. The multiverse game that's going on too.
Oh, yeah.
Max is going to be running stuff over there,
You're looking to watch something Batman, Max is your go-to place.
Absolutely. And I know you got some deals that are on Amazon, too.
I do. Amazon's got a whole bunch of Batman sales going on. So they have the 4K Ultra HD Batman Mask of the Phantasm, 56% off its normal price. Currently listed $14.95.
Wow.
They've got the Batman 4-movie collection. So that's Batman 89, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin on sale for $9.99. They've got the 4K Ultra HD. So it's the 4K Ultra HD and Blu-ray Dark Knight Trilogy. So for $33.99. Normally it goes for $70.99. So that's over half off.
That's a deal.
You get Batman Begins, you get The Dark Knight, and you get The Dark Knight Rises. That's a hell of a deal for all 3 of those movies in 4K. Only $33.99. Also, they got Batman the Complete Animated Series, 12 discs, 109 episodes. That's all 35 hours of Batman, folks. They've got that on sale for $29.99. Normally $79.99, 63% off. It's a hell of a deal.
That's a steal.
Also, underrated show, I would say. Batman Beyond, the complete series, got 6 discs. Normally it's $33.99. $24.99 for this weekend. And then lastly, certainly not leastly, they've got the 4K Ultra HD. So it's that plus the Blu-ray version of The Batman. Normally $33.99. It's 62% off right now. It's only $12.99. That's a hell of a deal.
There's a lot of deals going on.
Absolutely.
So if you want to find out more about that, like I recommend dc.com/Batman, plus at dc.com. They do have their blog up right now that has a bunch of the deals that we just mentioned and even more. So you definitely want to check that out. I recommend the one for DC Universe Infinite. Like that is a steal. I am a proud subscriber of that, along with going to the comic shops each week. I do it all. So what can we say? But this is the place to go. Celebrate your Batman fandom this weekend. Tag us in social media. We definitely want to have those interactions with everybody as well. So that said, though, before we get out of here, of course, it's New Comic Book Day.
It is.
Pat, what you reading?
A couple things from DC. The first of which is Superman issue number 18 from Joshua Williamson. It's an Absolute Power tie-in. So this one reads, quote, Amanda Waller has the powerless heroes of the DC universe on the ropes. Can the powerless Superman and Zatanna find the mystical map to the Dark Roads in time to get some major backup? Lex Luthor, Lois Lane, Mercy, Jimmy, and Silver Banshee are on the run from the superpowered Amazos, but find themselves pulled into battle for the soul of Metropolis. Don't miss the shocking cliffhanger that impacts the future of the Superman titles. Good grief. Plus, the cover looks nuts.
Absolute Power has just been amazing, especially Williamson and Campbell on that. It's just perfect pairing.
Then from the folks over at Marvel, you've got the Avengers issue number 18 from Jed McKay. Storm against Hyperion. New Avengers member Storm has joined the team just in time to deal with Catastrophe. And she'll need to call in other mutants to help against this world-ending threat. A who's who of the Marvel Universe must unite against the supreme power of Hyperion. And someone steps off the Avengers. Oh, boy.
I love what they're doing on this series right now. I really think they've kicked some steam up, especially adding in Storm. I think that's long overdue, so I love that.
Great addition. And then you've got the 2 issues I'm recommending that I reviewed for Nerd Initiative this week. The first of which is Star Wars Darth Vader, issue number 50. This is the series grand finale from Greg Pak. The description reads, Giant-sized Darth Vader epic. The longest-running Darth Vader comic series ever reaches its stunning conclusion as the dark heart of the Sith comes full circle. Darth Vader finally unleashes the unfathomable power he's accumulated through the Schism Imperial against the only person in the galaxy he hates more than he hates himself, Emperor Palpatine. Also featuring the final twists in the saga for key characters like Luke, Leia, Sabe, Ochi, Zed, Slymore, and the members of the Schism Imperial, and more. So there's a couple. This issue is amazing, and this whole run of Star Wars is one of the best they've ever done for Star Wars, period. There's a couple of highlights in this issue, one of which you'll see when you read the issue, but if that doesn't get turned into one of those like figures you can purchase and build and they stand up as statues, it's going to be a fucking missed opportunity. I'll tell you that right now. There's an awesome story with Sabe and Leia, which if you've seen Star Wars, you know those names, and boy, that's a hell of a story they got going on there. There's also one at the very end that I don't want to say too much and I don't want to spoil it on here, but if you've seen the movies, it'll touch your heart a little bit, because it's one that I personally have always wondered what has happened to these characters. We kind of get a little bit of an answer. And it ties in with the story, and it ties in kind of with what's going on. It's a nice bookend to this story and everything they've done from with Darth Vader character. And where they go next, I don't know, but I'm going to be all for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, right now I think they're going to be taking the time off and then heading into the big midway point between the episodes 6 and 7.
Yep. Then the other one is the Star Wars The High Republic Adventures, issue number 10 from Daniel Jose Older and Dark Horse Comics. Zine, Lula, and their friends come face to face with a familiar nemesis on the streets of Iriadu City. As the Republic and the Jedi try to protect the capital from capture, they must do battle with old enemies. The fate of the planet is on the line as the forces of light and dark vie for its allegiance. So this one, not super action-packed. There is a couple of action moments, but it's not necessarily, Nihil versus the heroes of the story. But there is some interesting stuff with it. There's also a twist in this story that, honest to God, given who the character is and what their last name is, I should have seen it coming. I didn't. And at the end of it, I sat there and went, oh my God, why didn't I see this coming? It makes total sense, because even if you haven't been keeping up with the series, you'll see the last name and you'll go, oh, that family, that relationship, like that person, that character in the movies is descended from this character or this family line. Oh yeah, like that totally makes sense. I didn't see it coming, and it adds just another wrinkle to this story that you think you got it figured, you think you know who's who and what's on what side. It just threw a monkey wrench into the whole thing, and now I don't know where the hell it's going to go, and that's not a bad thing.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
They do amazing Star Wars stuff over at
Dark
Dark
Horse.
Horse.
They really do.
Definitely shout out to them. So for me, this was a star-studded week, and I just want to plug Nerd Initiative super quick. I know I usually do at the end. 38 reviews on site.
Woo.
Insane. Absolutely insane this week. So for me, though, it kicks off with Dark Horse Comics, speaking of them, and being an old-school 90s Vertigo reader, Paranoid Gardens is like taking me back and then some. So this is one Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance.
Yes.
Sean Simon, Chris Weston. This story is absolutely insane, and I'm here for it. It is quirky. It is weird. It is off the wall, and the wildest care facility has something that switches up the gears because now they're finally putting Lou, who's been the mysterious nurse that or caregiver, I should say, that has got some powers that they're not really explained yet, on course with Dr. Zirk, who is doing some stuff behind the scenes that nobody wants to deal with. They're now in that collision course. I love how they set this up. This is a fantastic series. Like I say, if you like that Vertigo style from the 90s,
right,
this is like a perfect homage. Like, it's fantastic. I could rave about this all day. And then we dip into one of the series that it keeps me guessing, keeps me on my toes. Falling in Love on the Path to Hell.
Okay.
Number 4. This is from Image Comics, Gary Dugan and Gary Brown, and this story is just freaking wild.
Mm-hmm.
The romance that has been building between Asame and McWraith have really taken up a notch. They conclude the first arc on a very, very strong note. A lot of moving parts happening here. A lot of different directions are thrown in. It's still a fascinating read, and I'm definitely all in about going to the second arc. But yeah, this is one that definitely it trips me out a little bit every time I read it. So definitely highly recommended, though. Also, coming from our friends over at the Massive Verse, Black Market Narrative, Image Comics, Cowl 1964, number 2. So this is Kyle Higgins, Alex Siegel, and Rodriguez reuniting the original team of the Massiverse has now been connected. This story was from 10 years ago.
Okay.
The original volume. And now the second story is picking up. And the scheming of Jeffrey Warner has now caught up with him. There's a lot of skeletons from his past that are coming in as they're now trying to make Cowl go nationwide. A lot of stuff, if you're into like political intrigue, so to speak, kind of that vibe, along with super heroics. There's a lot of moving parts with this one, but it's still a great read. I absolutely dig this story. I mean, I think they picked up right where they left off 10 years ago. So it is one that still is on my radar, and rightfully so, because it's nothing but a big bucket of win, especially Massiverse too. Like, I know there's like the loose connection, but now it's certified right there on the cover too. So how that plays into everything with the fallout of one Catalyst War in October is anybody's guess. Also, from our friends over at Valiant Comics and Alien Books, talk about taking me back. The Resurgence of the Valiant Universe #1. So this is their massive event that is tying in every hero in their universe. It is an interesting concept, Pat.
Yeah.
Because it's the question of Dr. Silk, who's been a longtime villain in that universe, now apparently has the power of immortality to give. So he's offering a perfect utopia. How does that play out with everybody and their views? And there's a very cool, like, 2 stories going on with this. There's a lot of creators involved. This is a very interesting story, and especially, like, for me, I've read Valiant, like, that's something I grew up on.
Right.
So it does take me back when I read this. I really dug what they did. There's a lot of things I'm curious of where they're going from here, but they've been building, if you've been reading their stories lately, it's all been building to this, and if you're there, you're going to be checking this out. Like, this is a really fun story to go pick up, so make sure to keep an eye on that. Also, from DC Comics, one of my favorite series, Batman Superman World's Finest. Mark Waid, and jumping in for the art duties is one Adrian Gutierrez, who we know from Blue Beetle.
Okay.
And this is a classic story in the early 70s, 80s time period of the JLA. And this is involving Eclipso.
Oh.
Great story. Love the setup. Mark Waid can pull the, like, I think he's the perfect writer for Superman and Batman. And Gutierrez stepping in for Dan Mora. I mean, that's big shoes to fill, and he completely does them. Excellent action sequences. You can rave about this book all day. Super excited to see where we go for #2. See, that's how amped I am. I'm hitting the microphone, folks. I don't like pulling my punches with that. Next up for me, Marvel Comics, X-Men #4. Jed McKay, Netho Diaz is stepping in for art duties, and this is focusing on the team in Alaska. Now, it was announced this week there is the raid on Grey Malkin coming.
Oh, okay.
And that is going to be both X teams having a face-off.
Uh-oh.
They have been building this, so I know I was reading online, a couple of people were like, oh, they're just kind of forcing this. No, they really haven't. If you've been reading Uncanny X-Men, with Gail Simone and Dave Marquez.
Right.
And this version of X-Men, it's been building. There's tension that's going on. How it's going to finally blow up is anybody's guess.
Mm-hmm.
But this issue is a very intriguing one. And I mean this because Magic is leading the team. And the threat is Trevor Fitzroy. Now, if that name sounds familiar,
A little bit.
that is the villain that Bishop was chasing when he came back in time in Uncanny X-Men 281.
Oh, okay.
And him and the upstarts are basically flipping the social narrative about humans and mutants, and they're killing mutants.
Uh-oh.
So it's a very cool story. I will say this. Like, it kind of flips a lot of things on its ear. And there is a cameo at the end, too, which I don't want to spoil, but if you're a longtime X-Men reader, yeah, you'll be pleased. I was shocked to see this villain show up, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So we'll have to see how this plays out, but it definitely is building for stuff. And I do love the dynamic they're doing with Magic, who was announced for her own regular series going on.
Right.
And I love how they are writing Juggernaut, too. I love the version here.
Yeah.
So a lot of big wins going on there as well. Last but not least, I'm an old school fan of G-Force, Battle of the Planets. Gotchaman definitely is on my radar when I read this. And there's a great sub-story going on, Gotchaman Galactor. Number 2, Steve Orlando, Kath Lobo. And this is focusing on the big villain one of the big villains of Gotchaman, Burke Katze. And somebody has tried killing him, and they missed. So what does the leader of Galactor get ready to do? Well, he's obviously going to find out who is behind this and take them out with no remorse. This has been a great series. 2 issues in. I love the setup. Love Steve Orlando's writing for this. I really have been very intrigued by this. I mean, I might say that word a lot, but when you have a story that really hooks me, especially one that he's really like let loose about the viciousness, but he's kind of given some behind the scenes to it.
Okay.
I really like how it's layered about this, and Lobo's art is fantastic on this too. So a lot of big win. That is from Mad Cave Studios as well. Anything else that you want recommendations for, nerdinitiative.com. Like we said, over 38 reviews on the site today. It's insane.
That's nuts.
It's insane. But shout out to the Bullpen, hardest working team in comic reviews, and nobody does Nerd Initiative, New Comic Book Day like the Bullpen. Frankly, reviews are not done like anybody else than we do. Enough said. See, that's how amped up I am to talk about it, but that's why, unfortunately, we're out of time, so I can go rest and recoup. So with that being said, anything and everything that is the ODPH, you can find it at odphpodcast.com. For the one and only Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken. Thank you, as always, for listening to the ODPH podcast. Happy Batman Day, and we'll see you next week.